Alright, this is going to be my tier list for hand traps post YCS Vancouver. Starting off, we have Ash Blossom. What do I want to rate Ash? Ash to me feels like a solid card right now. I don't want to put it in high impact because it's not like Ash by itself is FTKing decks, or stopping like a lot of decks plays unless they draw suboptimal. However, I think it's very multi-purpose. I think Ash should be included in your deck probably just because it's a decent hand trap if you're taking a hand trap approach, but also you can Ash like Holy Sue, you can Ash Azuna. If you're playing against like Yummy, like Ash in Obedient School is pretty good as well. So I think Ash is really solid. Moving on to Bell, I'm gonna put Bell in decent situational. I think going second into Yummy is pretty good. Like sometimes there are a lot of scenarios where like Bell on the synchros, like tag out effect, just like goes crazy, And I think depending on the deck you're playing, Bell going second into dracotail can be good as well if you have a decently strong engine. Bell is not higher in my opinion because I think Bell going first versus Yummy and dracotail is a lot worse than it is going second. So that makes it kind of awkward in the main deck sometimes. Also, I think versus Vanquish Soul, it leaves a lot to be desired. Very inconsistent. So I am gonna put Bell in decent situational, but I think if you're playing a hand trap approach, it's okay in the main if you're taking, and then it's like a decent side deck card. Bystials, Magma. I'm gonna put Magma in lackluster, or Bystials in lackluster. I think the Bystials right now are not that great. They're not really good against Vanquish Soul. Not really good against dracotail. Against Yummy, it's like they're just like okay, but like just one Bystial isn't that great. You kind of want like Magma's okay for the Bystials, but like if you're only playing Magma and if you're playing two Bystials for Yummy, and it's only really for Yummy, at that point you should probably be playing like another card instead. But I think if you're playing Malice, it makes sense to play them. But if you're playing like any other deck, I don't think it makes sense to play Magma in your deck. Contact C, I'm gonna put Contact C in decent situational. Contact C have a card. It's like a cross sheep check, right? If they don't have out the Contact C because it's for a Yummy card, then like you probably are like vibing. But if they do, they're gonna feel sick. So that's why it's decent. It could be sometimes it could be high impact. Sometimes it can feel super lackluster. So I'm gonna put it in decent / situational for now. DB Crow, I'm gonna put DB Crow in lackluster. I think even if you're taking a hand trap approach, it doesn't do that much. Like versus Vanquish Soul, when they go Rockat back, it's pretty good, but it has similar issues to Bell in that matchup. Like it's just like inconsistent. Sometimes they'll also just go Yokel, summon itself in a 5 from hand, and then the DB Crow is completely garbage. And then I don't like that. Against dracotail, it's not completely unplayable. Like sometimes you can DB Crow like an Altharion add back, or you can DB Crow like Urgula in the graveyard. But I think it's kind of meh. And then versus Yummy, I think the DB Crow is gonna be pretty lackluster as well. Because unlike Bell, like the Yummy synchros don't target. So like DB Crows, they're going to get value out of the synchros no matter what. So it doesn't have that same flexibility in that matchup. So I think DB Crow is a bit meh. I think the only reason you'd play it is if you're playing like Vanquish Soul and you want another attribute, but I'm not a big fan. Delta, I think Delta is a bit lackluster right now. I think that decks have a lot of monsters, so Delta becomes a bit awkward. Sometimes it can be good if your opponent starts with like a spell starter, like Obedient School, or Hornet Drones, or whatever, Sacred Soul, or like Ketu Arahu, but I think it's too inconsistent to be considered good. Because it could also just hard open a Yummy name or Raven or Holy Sue Yokel, whatever, and it's gonna be bad. So I don't think Delta's very good right now, to be honest. Just because it's inconsistent. Next card is Joel. Joel is pretty decent right now. I think it's a good side deck for a card for Vanquish Soul. It kind of had the issue of like if you're playing 6-1 Charmies with it, it's a bit awkward, but people aren't even main decking Pearly right now. I wouldn't main Joel because I don't think it's good against Yummy. It is good against Yummy when they start with Engage, but every other time it's not, so it's not consistent enough against Yummy. But it's a good side deck card for Vanquish Soul, so I think it's a good side deck. And obviously, if you play against like Mitsu Rival, it's playable then. Phantasme, I'm gonna put Phantasme in decent situational. I think depending on the deck you're playing, it's pretty good against Yummy. But it's a side deck card because it's not good against dracotail, it's not good against Vanquish Soul. Even though Vanquish Soul does link summon, my issue with it against Vanquish Soul is that with like a lot of hand traps, it's inconsistent. Because for hand traps against Vanquish Soul, you want cards that are useful if they start with like a K9 push, or if they start with like a like a link 1, like a normal summon into link 1. So I'm not a big fan of Phantasm because of that. And I think if you're taking hand trap approach versus Vanquish Soul, you want to stop them from playing. So I don't think Phantasm fits the bill. Gamma, honestly, I think Gamma, I would put it in solid, arguably high impact. I think Gamma's really good right now. Against Vanquish Soul, removing the body is crazy. It's one of the only cards that interacts well with Yokel Hand Effect as a hand trap. Yokel summon itself from another 5, like, kind of just beats so many hand traps, but Gamma's one of the only cards that says no, you know, to that. And it's pretty good again in every matchup, too. The only negative is that Gamma's at 1. So, you gotta play the 1 Gamma, 1 Driver, and Delta's not really that great right now, so it's a bit awkward, but I think Gamma's still solid. Chaos Hunter, this card's unplayable. Chaos Hunter is a card you generally play when you're already playing Lancia and you want another card. But Lancia's not that great right now, which I'll talk about Lancia next. So I think Chaos Hunter is meh. And then Lancia, I'm actually going to put in Lackluster. I personally am still of the opinion that Malice is a pretty strong deck. Like, it's still going first is still extremely strong, but going second is still pretty solid as well. Because you play so much non-engine, like Impulse, and it's like weird. But like obviously people aren't playing Malice like that. At least like if you look at like Vancouver, there are 2 in Top Cut. I think less people are going to start. I think Malice low-key becomes better because people might start cutting Lancia, but I still don't think that many people are going to play it. So because of that, I think Lancia is a bit lackluster right now. However, I'm not saying you 100% shouldn't side the card. Depending on what you're deck building for, what event you're going to, etc., you might consider it worth playing. But yeah, so anywho, I think Malice is really good. I just don't think Lancia is the best card right now. Imperm, I think Imperm's like decent situational. It's like I said before, against Vanquish Soul, you want hand traps that trade low. That like stop or good versus both plays. We normally summon a Vanquish Soul, or if they go a Canine Push, and then Imperm kind of fits that bill. Obviously, yes, if you go Imperm on Raisin and they have Borg or Caesar, you're gonna want to cry. However, the chance of that is relatively low, and there aren't really great alternatives to stopping Vanquish Soul pushes, right? It's not like you can be like, oh, I can just play my 3 of my other hand trap that stops it instead. It's like you don't have that many different options. So, and then versus Yummy, Imperm is pretty meh. It's kind of cool paired with some hand traps, like Imperm with Fua is pretty good. You Fua them, they go Snatch equals level 1, you Imperm and stand by a draw phase. Not bad. So it has some additional use there, but it's main. And then versus dracotail, I think Imperming like a name, like a Lucius or like a Mulu is pretty, well, more so Lucius is not that bad. Warner, this card's bad. Perulia, I think the card is decent. It's not super duper high right now because it's not good against Yummy. And if people are copying the Triff build, that's only go 3 Obedience School. Well, everybody has a 3 Obedience School. Play 3 Engage, 2, and 1 Hornet. If they open 1 of 7 cards, they basically can give you like 0 draws under Perulia. So I don't think it's given the main deck right at the moment. And it looks like Yummy is the most played deck right now. But it's a solid side deck card for Vanquish Soul. Also, it's not really good versus dracotail. Ghost Ogre, I'm gonna put in the decent situational. I think if you're taking a hand trap approach, you're trying to say, hey, I'm gonna stop decks by playing a ton of hand traps. I think Ghost Ogre is one of the better cards to play. I think it's decent versus Vanquish Soul. You can high roll on the name like a normal Raven, or you can hit like the field spell with Mad Love. It doesn't interact amazing versus some of the Canine stuff, but I do like that sometimes. And then versus Yummy, it is a bit meh. I'm gonna keep it 100. I mean, sometimes you can like hit like a what's it called, like a field spell or whatever, but depending on how they chain block on your turn too. So it's a bit mad, but it's like the 5th or 6th best hand trap in that approach, but you kind of just want more hand traps if you're taking hand trap approach, and it's like your next best option. Dominous Purge, however, I think is very, very good. I think it's one of the better I think it's one of the best hand traps against Vanquish Soul if you're taking for like a hand trap approach where you're trying to draw multiple, because it stops Raisin. And it's like a trap, so it's not a monster effect. So it doesn't turn on Azuna, you know, it doesn't, like Ripper doesn't negate it, etc. Also, it's not like Imperm, it doesn't target, so your opponent can't Caesar or Borger to dodge their way out of it. I'm a fan. Ghost Reaper, I'm gonna put Ghost Reaper in Lackluster. The reason I have Ghost Reaper in Lackluster is honestly, I think the card is not terrible against Yummy. Honestly, I don't think so. However, I think they can play through with Engine, and if they get to the spot where they play through with Engine, then they kind of just like, you kind of just hand looped yourself. Like, you know, like Hornet Jones beats it by itself, and like any 2 names beats it by itself. I think it's still playable though if you're playing other hand traps, depending on the other hand traps you're playing with it. The issue is some of the hand traps you have to that combo well with Ghost Reaper, like DB Crow, are not that great. Because you like DB Crow the field spell when they go like Star Hand discard, right? So not that great against Yummy. So that's why it's lackluster. Shifter. I think Shifter's okay. You know, it's good against dracotail. It's okay against Yummy. I don't think it's crazy against Yummy, but it's like playable. Skullmeister, this card is unplayable. Gizmek Uka, this card is unplayable. Veiler, I think it's like an Imperm right now. I think it's honestly decent. I think it's decent against Vanquishful. Like Imperm. I know people are gonna be like, oh, it turns on Azuna, yada yada yada. Yes, it does. And I'm not gonna lie, if Vanquishful opens like 5-card combo, Yokel, another Holy Sue, Fire, Dark, whatever, you probably lose the game, no matter what you have. But I think hand traps are the best way to stop the deck, especially because the deck is a bit inconsistent. So sometimes they need like one push to resolve. There's not a perfect way to like beat the deck, because I don't think board breakers are gonna let you consistently win against good Vanquishful players. Nibiru, I think Nibiru's pretty solid right now. Nib against Yummy is pretty good. And against Vanquishful it's kind of sus and dracotail, but against Yummy is pretty good, so I think the card has a lot of value. Fua, I think Fua is really solid right now, just because against Yummy is really good. Even though they get to like the half board, when they get to that half board, like it means like Fua paired with like another non-engine, like I mentioned like Imperm or something like that, or like Ogre, like whatever, because like you Ogre the snatchy effect of Synchro on your turn, is pretty not bad. So I like Fua. And Dracotail, it's pretty decent. I say decent. It's not really that great versus Dracotail, I'm not gonna lie. But most of your hand trap's not great versus Dracotail, at least like trades 1-for-1. So if you have like a strong engine, you can like maybe push through. But against Vanquishful, it's like okay. It's definitely worse than Pearly against Vanquishful, that's for sure. Moving on to Meows. I'm gonna put Meows in lackluster. I think against Malice it's pretty solid, but so I think for like Vancouver there was an argument to play Meows, because like against Yummy you can Meows when they go like minion target, so you get a draw there and they have to give you another draw at least to make like Arclight. The issue there is that good Malice players half the time they're not going to place the minion turn 1 anyway. So, and I think as more time goes on, people are going to learn that you don't need minion as much turn 1, like I've been saying before in some of my past videos. So because of that, I think Meows loses value against Yummy. And if it loses value against Yummy, and you're only playing it for like Malice, well then Lancia is just like the better option, obviously. Some people will say it's an attribute for Vanquishful, but Earth is like the least needed attribute. Also, it's like a fake attribute, because going second, you can't really use it for Holy Sue, because if you do use it for Holy Sue, then you can't activate Meows, because you control a monster, so yeah. I already did Bystials, Cycle Reader, unplayable. Token Collector, unplayable. Retaliating Sea, I think it's like decent. It's like an option against Dracotail. Also, like some people are citing Bell for Dracotail, and I don't think it's bad, but if you're playing Yummy, I think low-key, like, Dracotail low-key wants to go second against Yummy rather than going first. Like, Yummy struggles the most in that matchup when Dracotail is going second into them, so like when Yummy's going first. So like the issue with Bell is that it's not good going first. So I like Retaliating Sea kind of, because like it's actually decent going first. Obviously like you can attack over it, but I think it trades okay-ish. The issue is that like versus a full hand trap build, you know, they're not that great. It kind of depends on what build of Dracotail you're playing against. But I don't think Retaliating Sea is terrible. Next up we have Impulse. I'm like between Impulse being top of decent and like really solid. It being I like that it can trade versus some cards like you know, Stake Your Soul or Yokel with Fan Effect. If versus Vanquish Soul, if they already control a card, if they start off with that, obviously you can't Impulse it. I like that it can stop Obedience School, and I like that it's really good against Vanquish or Dracotail. So I'm gonna put it at towards solid. Cause also side note, against Dracotail, I think hand traps are not that great, but I think sometimes they can still go crazy because Dracotail is not the most consistent deck. So yeah, then Azuna, I'm gonna put Azuna in decent. I think Azuna versus Vanquish Soul is really, really solid, especially if you're playing like Vanquish Soul yourself. I think the main problem with Azuna right now that makes it like not like insane is obviously Yummy is the most played deck, it seems, or is going to be at least, and Azuna is very, very bad into Yummy. And by very bad, I mean almost unplayable, at least when you go second into them, kind of. It's not, it's like, I wouldn't say, It can be live because they play monster hand traps, and I would keep it in going first, but I would not. I would take it out going second for sure. And then Songs of the Dominator. I honestly think Songs is pretty good right now in a vacuum because it stops. It's a stop versus Vanquish Soul. It can be Ash, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. The issue with Songs is that you can't really play too many other hand traps with it. So because of that, outside of the vacuum, it looks pretty bad. But yeah, anywho, that's it for my tier list. I hope you enjoyed this tier list post Vancouver. I know I uploaded the tier list a couple weeks ago. Obviously, the format has changed a little bit, and obviously we've all been playing the format more, so we've learned more about the cards and how the decks function. Yeah, so this is where my thoughts are right now. Anywho, I hope you enjoyed the video and have a great day.